Hello, welcome to A March for the Ages. I'm Caroline Sellers from Montgomery Academy. Our guest today is Bennie Ruth Crenshaw. Miss Crenshaw, thank you for joining us.
Yes, good to be here.
So tell us what it is like to be a young person in Selma, Alabama in March of 1965.
It was definitely quite different than it is today. I basically lived in a segregated society. The schools were segregated, churches, neighborhoods. There was very little interaction between the races. And basically we lived in like two cities. One side was a black city and one side was a white. But it was basically segregated, and you did not get the opportunity to interact with others.
Yes, ma'am. What do you remember about the events of 1965?
What I remember, the most vivid thing that I remember, was the time that I spent in jail.
Tell me about that day.
Well, actually, it was that day, it happened that day that I was arrested, but I ended up being in there for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
When the teachers tried to register to vote, they were turned away, pushed away, beaten. When they returned back to the school, there were a number of us who said that, hey, it's time for us to take a stand for the teachers. They're our teachers. They teach us. They must become first-class citizens. And so we decided to leave school and protest what had happened to them. And at that time, we went to jail. And jail was something that I probably, of all the movement, that I'll never forget. There were dogs when we were bussed. There were unsanitary conditions. We saw people even beaten in front of us. So, you know, that is something that you will not forget, and that's very vivid to me. I was transferred from one jailhouse to another because basically we were the first to go, and we were seniors. And so when we did go, they had to make room for others, and that's when the plight of the movement really started, was when the children ended up going to jail. So I'd have to say the most vivid thing to me was making that sacrifice and knowing that I had a purpose at that point to make a difference. And I knew it was for the teachers that I loved very dearly. Mm-hmm.
Were you there on Bloody Sunday?
On Bloody Sunday, I was let out of jail. My sisters and my aunt were there getting ready for the march. When I was let out that night, it is amazing about that. I entered jail one way, and I came out of jail alone. The federal government was in getting us bailed out, but there was supposed to have been a bus there. But when I got out, signed my name to get out, I got outside, the bus was gone, so I started to walk. And when I walked, the bus finally did pick me up, but my aunt said, "You're not going to prepare for the march today, we are." But now I'm in the bed resting. I look at television, tear gas, smoke. My sisters, my aunt, I said, oh my God. I got up. The church was 5 minutes from where I lived. I got up, I ran to the bridge. What I saw was something, too, that I'll never forget. There were people being run over by horses, people being tear gassed, people being stepped on, people being beaten. I was there. I saw what I saw. And I never will forget that. So Bloody Sunday, to me, is another factor in my life that plays a pivotal role in why I still have a purpose in fighting for justice today. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about attending mass meetings around that time.
Oh, mass meetings were joyful. I enjoyed mass meetings. But to me, I think that the reason why I would love to go is because I saw a certain kind of togetherness in the community. You know, back then you didn't know what would happen from one day to the next. But when you gathered in the church of God and people were overjoyed by what we were trying to do, even though we were afraid. There were many nights when we were at mass meetings when state troopers would come and surround the churches. Once we left the churches, we were harassed quite a bit, pulled over, license checked, tickets for no reason. All of these things happened, but mass meetings gave me an opportunity to see adults at work. And they made me feel very, very good to see that. And there was a sense of community spirit at the mass meetings.
What was your impression of Martin Luther King?
You know, I was young, 16 years old, and you know, Martin Luther King now is to me as Barack is my president. I would love to, and I'm going to get the opportunity to be in the presence of the president one day, and he's going to be president. But Dr. King's presence was like that for me. He would come to Brown Chapel Church and speak, and ironically, I never had a fear of really just trying it once. I would say, hey, I'm going to march down this aisle, and when I get up to Dr. King, I'm going to hug him. And I did. I think that was one of the most exciting things to me that could have happened to me. His statue, his message, his leadership, all those things have inspired me throughout my life. I often, if you would come to my house now, you would find a library of his books. But he was definitely a role model, a mentor, a messenger, someone for me to emulate. And I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to be in his presence.
Are there any phrases or words that you specifically remember him saying a lot?
Well, you know, at the end of his speech and at the beginning of his speech, he said quite a few things in there. Black boys and white girls walking together, hand in hand. People living together as one. And he said that he wanted to be able to have a purpose. He said, stand up and fight for something that's right. Because if you're not fighting for it, it means that you're for it. There were a lot of things that Dr. King said that should carry us for a long time. And I know that deep down, his words will be with me and my children for a very long time.
And why is Bloody Sunday relevant to us 50 years later?
Because it did something that, it was like a bell around the world that said that now things will change. It focused on civil rights. It focused on the fact that people had the right to vote. And had not that happened, I'm not quite sure where we would be today. We got the Voters' Rights Act out of that. If it had not been for Bloody Sunday, people making a total sacrifice, we may not be where we are. And when I say where we are, I'm talking about people having certain liberties, people having the right to have a pursuit of happiness. So I think that Bloody Sunday was very pivotal when it happened.
What has been the biggest change in Selma since 50 years ago?
I think that Selma has opened some doors of communication that were not there when I was growing up. We have a lot of growing to do, but I think because those doors are slowly opening, I think we are eventually going to get to be a society in Selma that would finally say we have arrived, basically with civil rights, human rights, and communication. I do think we have the potential to show the world that if Selma can make it through all of the trials and tribulations that we've been through, black, whites, and others, I think that we will set an example for the nation to say that people can live together, work together. And I think Selma is on its way. We do have work to do because now we're dealing with situations where I personally would like to see our children definitely get more involved with each other so they can build on what we have done. So Selma is growing and moving.
What can young people learn from your experience?
I think the first thing that they could learn probably is that we all have a purpose. You know, a lot of young people feel like they go from day to day, and I have a group called the Selma Dallas Youth Ambassadors, a group of young people I've been dealing with for the past 10 years. And the first thing that they know about me is that they have to have a motto, they have to learn it. In that motto, everything is centered around what is my purpose? What can I do to transcend my fellow man? Am I my brother's keeper? Should I stand for something that's good and right? I think that if they take that and define that within themselves, they can become young civil rights leaders. They can become potential neighborhood builders, humanity builders. I think they need to take that with them and find that purpose. Today it's a different kind of thing with young people because they don't really think that we understand where they are, but we do. And I often say to them, take what we have started to build for you, look at it, listen, and then move forward. But you must remember that you must take someone with you as you go. And along racial lines, I think that we are going to have to do a better job with bringing people together, young people. They can't build unless we build them. And I think if we build them, then we will have a better country, better world. But basically, I think that we will have better citizens, better, I feel in my ward, constituents. And I would like for young people to take what we went through on Bloody Sunday. I want them to take with them the sacrifices, the lives that people gave for them and build on that. And I think if they do that, they would be very, very productive.
Was there a time that you ever feared for your life?
On several occasions. But it's just like today, I've often asked myself, why are these young people not afraid of anything? Well, I had to go back to my own thinking when I used to walk up to the cattle prod, and when I would, they would have dogs, and you know, you in a room with 2 or 3 deputies, and they're about to fingerprint you, and you're saying to yourself, oh, so those 3 guys are just standing there. Oh, I mean, really, who are they? You're not really afraid of that. And a number of times, when I first got on the bus to go to a jailhouse, the dogs were waiting on me when I was the first person off the bus, and I said, oh my goodness, that was fear. But yeah, I was definitely afraid a lot of the times. But I carried the spiritualism that my grandma gave me. She said, take God with you and everything will be just fine. Mm-hmm.
Ms. Crenshaw, thank you for sharing with us today about your memories and thoughts.
Yes.
And thank you for watching A March for the Ages. Have a great day.